Wyrds of Power, Words of Power. I'm playing around with my brand a little bit. Wyrd is actually Anglo-Saxon, W-Y-R-D, but it's still a powerful word, even though it's not Celtic, it's Anglo-Saxon. But we'll let it. It's a powerful word, and it's not like fates, like the fates, like, it's my fate. It's what you do with it. So it's like the active component of your fate. So words of power, new language for a new reality. This is Frida Kahlo with her deer, smoking a cigarette outside her house in Mexico City. She had a lot of monkeys and parrots, but she also had this deer that lived with her. Frida's a big part of this research project. 2 foundational elements, 3 overarching themes, 3 further contemplations, and then we'll go into some worthy symbols for the great shift. I'm going to read something from each of the 5 books, and then at the end I'll tell you about what I'm going to do this year. I always like to give a little context. So I gave this talk in February, and it was right after we entered the year of the Yang fire monkey. Is everybody ready? And right after Imbolc in the north and Lughnasadh in the south of the world, the Celtic cross-quarter holidays. And now we're here. We slipped in a solar eclipse in there too, didn't we? And a new moon. And then now we're 2 days away from the equinox, the vernal equinox in the north of the world, and the autumnal equinox in the south of the world. And in honor of the year of the Yang fire monkey, this is Hanuman. It's a beautiful Indian, I think it's 18th century or early 18th century Hanuman. The caption is, Hanuman mistakes the sun for a fruit. But it's Hanuman, so maybe for Hanuman the sun is a fruit. So I question the painting's title a bit, but I love this painting, so I put it there for the year of the Yang fire monkey. There actually is a word for 5 books. I don't know what it is, but I made one up, cinco-rilogy, like Cinco de Mayo, 5 books, but it's quadrilogy plus 1. I did not intend to write 5 books. I intended to give 3 talks at the lodge, but 5 years, 15 talks, 126 epiphanies, 5 books, 633 pages, 209 images, and 125,759 words. Here we are. So, new language for a new reality. This is from the film Maleficent. Did most people see Maleficent? I feel it's a very important movie. I'll leave it there, but I encourage you to see it. And these are some themes that when I looked back at all of this and I wanted to kind of synthesize what happened, these are themes, what I meant by new language, a language that works towards or participates in the healing of the crack in the world, what I call the crack in the world, the fundamental error, certainly at the base of Western civilization, and arguably at the base of at least the last 2,000 years, the last 2 millennia, maybe 3 millennia. The split between spirit and matter, the split between heaven and earth, the split between light and dark, the split between male and female, the split. And this is a crazy thing that's at the it's fundamental to the cosmology of the West, certainly. It has made us all crazy. So healing the crack in the world, and language that is post-patriarchal, and language about what already is. I first said, it's not language that's not goal-oriented, but that's a little too, so I said the language about what already is, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. And language that is both mystical and existential. I'm not really interested in religion very much. I rob from all the religions of the world for my inspiration, but I'm not really a religionist. And I'm into mysticism, and I think we all have an existential reality, and I'm much more interested in, just personally, this is me personally. I mean, of course, I respect all the great religions of the world. All of them? I respect the great religions of the world, but it's just not a focus for me. But I am interested in mystics and artists, and I am interested in, I'm much more interested, because I believe you can find a common language for mystics, true mystics, whatever tradition they happen to find themselves in, and atheistic existentialists or atheistic humanists. There's common ground, there's language about stripping the now down to the nothing and everything of what it is, that you don't need a belief system or a faith. And I was going to go through, see if I even use the word faith or belief anywhere, because I can't even use them, I've noticed. I wonder if it's in there. If it's in there, it's in some context. So that new language, and what do I mean by new reality? So we need new language, because a lot of the language that we have is from the last 2-3 millennia. A lot of it's warped. And so new language, and new language for a new reality, meaning I have a different take on what I call the primal reality, the truth of what we already are, what we are, and who we really are and what we really are, plus the Anthropocene age, which is where we find ourselves in the first, it's not official yet, but I'm pretty confident that it will be. The scientists are debating it now, that we're in the midst of the Anthropocene age, the first geological age that was framed, caused by a species, us. And it started in the 1950s. And you can trace it back to when aluminum, concrete, and plastic started appearing ubiquitously across the earth. You can trace it back to radioactive materials. And you can trace it back, of course, to our burning of fossil fuels. So primal reality, a different look at what primal reality is, plus the reality of the Anthropocene age, plus the great shift that's demanded of us because we've created our own geological epoch. And it's going back, it's the first 4.7 billion years. The Anthropocene age started in 1950. So singularity and anticipation of itself is the first foundational element of these books. And what do I mean by, I love this image. This is from 2003. This is a Navy image. It's the USS Honolulu at the North Pole being stumbled upon by some polar bears. I find this image profoundly poignant. I keep remembering the beginning of Kubrick's 2001 with the chimps, the apes, and the icon, the obelisk, right, the apes and the obelisk, because to me this is like that, and there's so much in this. I mean, the Kyoto Accords were signed in 1997 under the Clinton-Gore administration, and we backed out of them in 2001 in the Bush-Cheney administration, and we got back involved in 2008 in the Obama-Biden administration, and the world, including the United States, signed on to the final document, COP21 in Paris in 2015, last fall. And I started speaking out about climate change in the early aughts, much to the chagrin of some of the people I worked with, and who felt I should be warning about other things. And the fourth book was finished on the weekend of the Great March in New York in September 2014, I want to say. Yeah, September 2014, the largest march in history, perhaps, certainly the largest climate march in history in New York in 2014. And then the fifth book was finished the writing of it was finished during COP21 in Paris, and then was uploaded and released right after Paris, and has a chapter in it called Welcome to Paris. So climate change has been a big part of this, but it's not just climate change that has created this singularity. We have created this singularity for ourselves, this impossibility which we have to find our way out of. It's also Earth Overshoot. Have you ever heard of Earth Overshoot Day? So some scientists have calculated the length of time it takes to use up all of the natural resources for humanity on this planet in a year. How much, in other words, how much time it takes to create the resources that we use in a year, and how long it takes for us to use it up. So Earth Overshoot Day is that time of every year where we've used up what the Earth has what the Earth has created for us that year. And once we use up that point, we're now digging into our principal instead of the interest on our resources, right? So in 1971, it was December, some day in December. In 1990, in the 1990s, it was sometime in, I'm going to say October, I'm not sure. But anyway, now we're into August. And last year, it was something like August 19th. Don't worry about it. It's sometime in August. And the year before that, it was a few days before that in August. I don't know what Earth Overshoot Day is yet this year, but it'll probably be sometime earlier in August, because we're certainly not going the other way. So we have sustainability issues. And it's also, we've launched the 6th great extinction. We're not a super volcano, we're not a comet, but we've caused basically the background extinction rate is something, we're operating now at like 1,000 times the background extinction rate. And they talk about 30, 40, 50% of all species being extinct within some lifetimes in this room. The 6th great extinction. This is our Anthropocene age. So that's why I say singularity and anticipation of ourself. And I'll read you a little bit from the first book. And I can't get around reading this. I have to read this because it kind of sets up what we were just talking about. What I suggest to you is that the human race in its journey of self-discovery has created a singularity. The life we have made for ourselves is unsustainable. Our genius for developing has eclipsed our capacity to reduce the mass of our ignorance. Our population is growing beyond all nature's built-in checks and balances. Our demand for fresh water and our exploitation of soil have outstripped the capacity of these vital resources to renew themselves. Our climate is deteriorating, our oceans are dying. Our collective footprint has begun to crush the world on which it depends. We are no longer walking in this world, we are walking over this world and crushing it beneath us. The political, economic, and religious structures with which we frame our shared reality are caving in on themselves. We are, in our genius and our ignorance, we have created an impossibility, and we are fueling it every moment of every day. There is no way out of this impossibility, because what could lead us out is leading us deeper into it at every twist and turn. We cannot turn, we cannot change course, we cannot stop sliding backwards, we cannot stop hurtling forward. Our problems have become our solutions have become our problems. This impossibility is our crisis. It has created a singularity. What will come from this singularity? If anything but extinction or near extinction comes from this crisis, it will be because of something unforeseen, something unprecedented, something miraculous, something utterly new emerges from this singularity from within us in the midst of our meltdown, after everything has gone full tilt. We are the singularity, and we are poised here in anticipation of what will emerge from the unthinkable, unimaginable collapse of our collective self. Therefore, we must learn to see in the dark. On the bright side, the other foundational element, aside from the singularity and anticipation of itself, is what I call the primal reality, or the yoga of primal reality. What do I mean by that? Nothing new. It's so old that it's new, perhaps. It's just a different, at a different angle, and like I said, maybe some different language, but it starts with a reworking of what siddhi means to us. So siddhi, of course, it means various kinds of enlightenment, but it also, second definition would be powers, like extraordinary powers. Commonly, when we use it when we're using it commonly, we're typically speaking of, being able to, like flying carpets, or levitating, or walking through fire, or turning water into wine. These would be siddhis. A remote viewing would be a siddhi. Being able to read people by looking at their faces, even if it was a face in a grainy satellite photo, that's a siddhi. Being able to know about the future, not everything about the future, but something about the future, and have that turn out to be pretty reliably true. Those are all siddhis. Imagine if you had all those three siddhis. If you could remote view, if you could read people from photographs, or just by looking at them, and you had some prescience about future events, you'd make a master spy. Just saying. So siddhis, but I say, well, let's look at siddhis in a different way. And so this is, there's a book, perhaps you know it, Masters of Mahamudra is one of the translations, Master of Enlightenment. Keith Dallman did a great version. It's gone out with a couple of different sets of illustrations. It's got the stories it's a wonderful book. It has the story of 84 Mahasiddhas in it, people with great powers from the ancient yogic traditions. 80 men, 4 women in the stories. What hubris, right? 80 men, 4 women. So I said, well, maybe, and they're amazing stories of their powers and the remarkable things they did. And I said, well, maybe we should do a new version with 80 women and 4 men, or maybe just 44 and 43 or something like that. But the powers would be the 5 senses, the power to sleep, the power of conscience, your native conscience, the power of creativity, the power of the scientific method, the power of intuition, the power of the bodhisattvic mind. In other words, all the things that we already are, all the things that we are born with are siddhis. We are extraordinary creatures, and that's what I'm trying to get at with the concept of primal reality. And that's why I say what already is, or that it's a language that's not goal-oriented about mysticism, because I want to try to communicate with people when I talk to people what we already are, the miraculous nature of what you already are. People will tell you they can't meditate, and if you ask them how did they sleep last night, they would probably tell you really well. And well, what is sleep? How do you go from this realm away, have dreams which are often, will tell you, have all kinds of information about your life, go through all kinds of planes and then come back again and feel, how do you do that? So people's ideas of what's remarkable are very limited, and we are remarkable beings as we come in. Dalai Lama talks about, when every child is born, it's only born, all children are born in the same religion, the religion of kindness. Manure occurs, as I say, so things change, maybe sometimes quickly after, but everyone is born into the one religion of kindness. That's power. That's us. So this is, I'm going to spend a little time here, because this is one of the 4 women in Masters of Mahamudra, Masters of Enlightenment. It's a beautiful illustration by Robert Beer, and it's Lakshminkara, who is called the Mad Princess. So she was sold as part of a deal between 2 kingdoms, and she was waiting outside the kingdom that she was sold to be married to the prince of that realm. And she was in her carriage, all, hidden, veiled behind the veils of the carriage, and the king and the prince and their party were out hunting, and they came through, and she was a Dharma practitioner, and she peeked out through the window of her carriage, and there were all these men covered in blood carrying carcasses, and all, bloodlust coming into their castle. And she was like mortified. This is where I'm going. So she got out of her little cage, and she gave away the entire dowry they sent with her to the poor people that were outside the walls of the palace. And then they came and got her. It was too late. She had already distributed all of her wealth, and they took her inside and they locked her in a room, and then she took off all her clothes and smeared herself in filth and bit everybody that came in. And so they left her alone for a while, and they contacted her family, and her family said, "We're done." And so she escaped to the cremation grounds outside the walls of the temple, where she lived with the dogs in the cremation ground and ate whatever the people threw over the wall to feed the dogs. And she lived with them and pursued her practice. And then one day, one of the king's latrine sweepers was out in the cremation ground on some errand, and he came across this amazing being, luminous being, and the latrine sweeper realized that she was a great yogini, a Vajra yogini, and so he said, "Teach me." And she said, "Okay, I'll teach you," and she gave him a practice that would lead him to a realization of who and what he really was. And I said, "Well, I want to stay here with you." She said, "No, you've got to go back and sweep the latrines. Just go back and sweep the latrines and do this practice, and it'll all be all right." So he went back, and he would visit her and bring her things every once in a while. And then one day, the king was out in the forest hunting, and he saw this light coming from this cave, this incredible radiance coming from this cave. And he didn't know what it was, and he approached the cave, and he went inside the cave, and it was this woman, Lakshmankara, meditating. And he was overcome, and he fell to his knees, and he begged her to teach him the Dharma, but she was rather suspicious of this guy. So she said, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with you. She said, "But there's a latrine sweeper in your palace who can help you." And he said, "Well, how will I know which one? I have many latrine sweepers." "I'm sure you do," she said. So she said, You'll know him. You'll recognize him." So he went and checked out all his latrine sweepers and figured out which one it was, and he became that latrine sweeper's student. And he too came to realize who and what he really was, and it changed the nature of his kingdom. I don't know if he ceased being a carnivore, but I do know people were better off afterwards. So that's the story of Lakshmankara. I don't know, from reading that story, I don't know what her power was except kindness and clarity of mind, but in great quantities. Anyway, I just felt we should tell her story. So singularity in anticipation of itself, the primal reality of who and what we really are. So in all of these 5 books, I realized, well, they're all, I can't even say manifesto anymore because I'm so common. So I said, well, maybe I'll call it a woo manifesto. And I said, no, that would be too weird, so I'll call it a you manifesto. And now I can't even, when I come across manifesto, I can't type it. I'd say you manifesto. So each one of these, all of them together are a you manifesto, a guide, and then they're also a user's guide. I say a user's guide to human incarnation, a technical reference manual for this amazing apparatus that we are. Yeah, I'll read this one. There is an unspeakable beauty shimmering from just behind the thin veil of this world. Standing naked before it, all your failures and confusions are sanctified and rechristened as ceremonies of innocence. It is a moment of sublime astonishment. The most powerful words come from this state of utter wordlessness. Tremulous and iridescent, they pour forth from a radiant emptiness. Drink them in. They are the elixir of the unknown, and they unlock the adventure within you. There is no end to it. I have these 3 drawings, and you'll find them in the books, and I'm going to have better copies of them made. They're just drawn by me, but there's a few things about them that are important, and so I keep going back to them, and I always say, oh, well, I'll give a talk about that sometime. So actually, I'm going to go into them a little bit tonight. So this one I call the divine flame of human incarnation, who and what we really are, right? So, but I'll explain this drawing with some other drawings. So this is, see this happy guy here. This is sort of our concept of the spiritual journey. We're a being, and we have a divine flame inside us. You know, and we're going to get to that place and live from there, okay? But in reality, it's actually more like this. We are this immense flame of beingness, of consciousness, being, consciousness, and bliss. And inside of this immense flame that we are, there's this experience of incarnation in 5 bodies that we're having. And the difference between this version, nothing wrong with this. This is relative, this is our experience of relative reality at a certain point. But the difference between here and here, this version of ourselves is kind of like a handstand, except in this handstand, you're actually getting to where you're supposed to be. A handstand is like a temporary adjustment. This is actually the reality of what we are. Immense flame, and inside the immense flame of consciousness, being, and bliss that you are, there is this experience of incarnation, of uniqueness in incarnation that each of us has. So that's the first point of this. Okay, so here's another way that we look at it all, the spiritual path. Here we are in seated meditation, the blob person in seated meditation, and we have our chakras from the crown to the root. Important, powerful, but that's usually all you ever see about the inside in graphs and charts. But really, it's more like this. So I made them standing, not sitting. And here's your chakras, but there's also the 5 vayus, the movements, the winds, the way that prana and chi, the chakras are energetic centers. The vayus are storms, the storms of prana, prana/chi that move through our systems 24/7. And they move in 5 directions. And they're like I always think of the red hurricane on, the big fat spot, red spot on Jupiter is a hurricane. It's constantly going. Well, these vayus are constantly going in all of us. We engage in them. A friend led a beautiful practice once, and it changed my experience of yoga. And she was showing these vayus. So, you're in asana, and if you go, I'm in street clothes, but if we're in malasana, we can feel samana vayu, the circular vayu that's at the center of the body. And all these vayus deal with various processes, but it's just, forget about that. Just think of that there's this churning all the time. And if I rise up into Tadasana, into mountain pose, there's all kinds of things going on if you're doing it right. But one thing for sure you're feeling in mountain pose is Udana Vayu, the upward movement of prana. And then if I go down into If I go down into Uttanasana without dropping my microphone, all right, I'm feeling Apanavayu, the downward wind of prana and chi. And if I come up into Utkatasana, I'm feeling many things, but you're feeling pranavayu coming in from the outside. And if I go into warrior 2, again, there's all kinds of things going on in all these poses, but one thing for sure is going on is Vayana Vayu, the outward motion of the prana and chi. So I do our friend with the 7 chakras and all the vayus coming in the 5 directions, the storms, but it could even get more complicated than that, and I didn't want it to look totally crazy, so I didn't draw in the meridians, although I was tempted to, right? So the vayus are like, say, the storm system, which rains prana down through, the winds of prana rage through the system. But if I go into the meridians are like rivers of prana and chi. Sonia Blade is in the house. And so if I go into saddle pose, and stay here for 5 minutes, I'm engaging the kidney meridian at the sacral lumbar region of the spine, the lower spine. And you stay there long enough, and you're working with the connective tissue, and you're not working with the muscle and bone anymore, and you're soaking it with chi. And the kidney meridian, this is borrowed from Chinese medicine. Yin yoga didn't exist before the last few decades in the form that we call, the way that we phrase it. But and if I go here into a wide knees child pose and I stay here for 5 minutes, I'm accessing the spleen meridian in the insides of the legs and soaking the spleen meridian. Kidney meridian does many things. Works on the bone marrow and the bones, the sexual organs, but it also helps us cope with fear. And the antidote to fear is wisdom. And there's always in life a dance between fear and wisdom. We want wisdom, there's always fear, but we want wisdom to lead in that dance. So we work on the kidney meridian, you work on the spleen meridian. Again, many bodily functions, all the 5 bodies are affected by all of these, all this kind of work, but the spleen meridian gives you lush lips, but it also gives you, strengthens the power of equanimity to deal with anxiety. In life, there's always anxiety, but we want to cultivate the equanimity. We want equanimity to lead in that dance with desire. So the point is that we're just these immense, complex, dynamic beings. Each one of us, as we come in, you don't create a kidney meridian, you don't create the vayus, you come in with them. To the extent to which we align ourselves with them and we attune to them and we work with them and we take care of them and allow them to take care of us, that's yoga. But every human being comes in this way. This is the amazing creation that we are. So it's a complex dynamic, and not to make it complex like, oh, how am I ever going to learn all this stuff? It's already you. It's already me. So it's a different view. And then this one is about, it takes the yogic model of consciousness, Atman, Buddhi, Chitta, Manas, Akamkara, and integrates it with the Jungian model, self, ego, anima, animus, shadow, persona. And I'm not going to go into it very far except to say another one of these ideas you always come across is the idea that we have to kill out the ego, or we have to kill out the false self, get rid of the false self and embrace the true self, or all of this nonsense. And I used to try to explain it away as bad translations and this and that, and to some extent that's true, but really at this point I think it's kind of a spiritual crime to talk about killing out the ego or killing out the false self or killing out as if it would be like, why would I get rid of my personality? Why would I get rid of my ego? Why would I get rid of my small self? Why it would be the same thing. Well, pluck out your eyes. We gave you eyes so you would pluck them out. We gave you a tongue so you would pluck it out. Why would you have this extraordinarily complex ego apparatus to maneuver in this world if it weren't for something that served the divine purpose? It makes no sense. And in that sense, the West is really farther along than the East in terms of psychology. And I don't mean psychiatry and its obsession with pharmaceuticals. I mean alternate therapies and things that have evolved out of psychology and psychotherapy, somatic psychotherapy and other forms of integrating, getting the information not just from the psyche, not just breaking down our dreams, but getting it from the body. The body holds the trauma. The body holds all kinds of information. The physical body, the energetic body, as well as the mental and emotional bodies, right? We need all this stuff. And the psychological realm is a sacred place. And the journey through the psychological realm is a sacred journey. And you could go just into the psychological realm, and you can go just into the spiritual realm. But if one just goes into one or the other, they're robbing themselves of a much more extraordinary experience of who and what they really are. So I tried to integrate, think about how they integrate here in this drawing. And then the last one, I spent a lot of time on this actually in the first book. But I'm not going to break it down. I'm just going to show you more crazy drawings to explain these crazy drawings. So here's three forms of seated meditation. So here's our happy friend meditating on his third eye. See, it's shining. And here's our happy friend meditating on her heart. It's shining. And what kind of meditation is this person doing?
Sitting with mustaches.
No, that's good. Vipassana, right? It's not really directional Vipassana, just sensing. So there's three forms of meditation. Nothing, wonderful. But what I want to say is that meditation is like just consider this. Meditation is like a smartphone. Meditation is like a smartphone, a really good smartphone. And seated meditation, whatever form of seated meditation you're doing, is recharging your smartphone. You're plugging it into the wall and you're getting juice. Now, when you're plugged into the wall, you can use your smartphone. You can use the GPS. You can surf the internet. You can get calls. You can text people. You can take pictures of stuff around the jack, whatever. You can use it. It's not in. You can use it, but really isn't a part of having a smartphone that you can take it wherever you go, in any context. That it's moving with you. That it's this incredible technology that's moving with you. So. But many of us, much of the time, view meditation as seated meditation. Like that's what you're working toward, is to be able to sit more. Fine, sure, but the point of it is to be able to move. And so that takes us to this amazing teaching from the Great Liberation of Padmasambhava and Yeshe Zogyal. And it's, they say, the ordinary mind is itself the perfect practice. The ordinary mind is itself the perfect practice. So wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, whatever befalls me, whatever attracts me, whatever distracts me, whatever crushes me, whatever amuses me, whatever I'm worried about, whatever's happening, whatever's beyond my control, whatever's in my control, whatever, I have this smartphone with me. And I can find out where I am, and I can get information, and I can communicate, and I can use it in real ways to optimize my experience of this ordinary mind. The ordinary mind is itself the perfect practice. So in the Vajrayana, you go from the 5 wisdoms, and then the 5 wisdoms forget themselves and they become 5 levels of vibration, 5 levels of color. That's what this drawing is about. And then they forget themselves and they become 5 elements. And then they forget themselves and they become 5 poisons. And then they become the 5 senses. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. And then here we are. And then that's involution, and evolution is you're going back again through the 5 senses, through the 5 poisons, through the 5 elements, through the 5 levels of vibration and color into the 5 wisdoms. Well, they occupy the same space all the time. Nirvana and samsara occupy the same space. Heaven and earth occupy, oneness and particularity occupy the same space. Always. Phenomena and noumena occupy the same space. And when we talk about 5 poisons in the Dharma teachings, I always think, well, okay, so that, yeah, anger, greed, gluttony. It depends upon whether it's 5 or 7, but anger and greed are certainly in there. And but I would say, yeah, 5 poisons, but any medicine is poison if it's used incorrectly. And every poison is medicine if it's used wisely with knowledge. So whatever the teaching of the 5 poisons started out as, it probably started out as something to do with, this is a very dangerous energy. And it can go this way, it can be used for good, or it can be used for bad, and you're going to find out all about it. So that's just something about the nature of the mind and meditation. We're going to move quickly through these, I promise you. So in the 4th book, I found myself writing about 3 themes. One of them was the evolution of yoga and the yoga of evolution. When I did teacher training some years ago, it was the day they were talking about, I think it was Dina was giving that class, and it was about the history of yoga. Well, and about the history of, modern history of yoga. And so, of course, it was Krishnamacharya, and from Krishnamacharya came Pattabhi Joy, and Iyengar, and is it Desikar? Yeah, Desikar? Desikachar, thank you. So Ashtanga, Iyengar, and Vinaya, which became other things. Big streams, big rivers of yoga from Krishnamacharya. Beautiful book about him. Men. And then I was looking, so I'm in this training and I'm looking, and I looked around me, and there were 50, 30 or 50 people in this training. Let's say 30. I think it was 50, but let's just say 30. There were 30 people in there. There were 3 men. Well, there was 50 or 30. There were 3 men. I was one of them. And I looked around and well, this class is going to be taught differently 50 years from now. It's because yoga is being evolved in an accelerated way in the West by many great people. And, from my vantage point, most of those great people evolving yoga now in an accelerated fashion are women. Some of them are in this room. But that's the truth. That's my prediction. So anyway, it's all good, and I'm going to read another thing. Yeah. Why do you step onto the yoga mat? For joy, for peace, for clarity, for healing, for spiritual awakening, for vanity, for a buzz, to feel dialed in, to relieve stress. All of these are valid reasons. Any one of them could serve as the catalyst for profound change. On the yoga mat, you encounter all 5 of your bodies and enter into intimate relationships with each of them. You realize that functions and faculties previously taken for granted are in fact miraculous siddhis. On the yoga mat, you also come face to face with your own shadow. All of your fear, anger, grief, confusion will rise up, and you will release each one into the fire to be transmuted into something greater. For as long as there is light, there will be shadow. So if you embrace it, you will have your own inexhaustible source of clean energy. On the yoga mat, you realize sooner or later that you are kneeling at the throne of the universe itself and holding an offering basket in your hands. And this basket contains the vastness of all space together with the richness of all life on this and every other planet. And in that moment of revelation, you will understand that you are both offering and receiving this gift. But you will not be able to explain that moment to anyone, ever, however many times you try. Stepping onto the yoga mat, you triangulate these 3 great encounters with your body, with your bodies, with your shadow, and with the universe itself. This triangulation forms a dynamic matrix through which human and divine pour into each other ceaselessly and consciously, transforming both present and future. This is the truth. So the second theme that was in this book was the ascendancy of the feminine. As magic, I did, part of the book was 9 women mystics and 9 women artists and photographers, and I did a biographical sketch of each one and included something from their work and a quote from them, just to give a sense of something and to look at what herstory would look like instead of history, and invoke something. For instance, I wrote about Kahlo and how if you wanted to think about what the great shift might look like, what is called upon us to survive the Anthropocene age we've brought to ourselves and all the other species, you know, a Kahlo might be like what Michelangelo and Da Vinci were to the Enlightenment and the Renaissance, because they personify something about the study of anatomy, flying machines, science, rationality, all the greatness the true greatness of the West. And but Kahlo opens up the mind, opens up the subconscious, opens up the shadow in ways that have never really been expressed before in images on canvas. And to call her a surrealist is really not. I mean, I love the surrealists, but something much bigger going on with Kahlo. And so it's just a different way of looking at it. And the ascendancy of the feminine in governance, governance in commerce, governance in the public sector, governance in the private sector, governance, the rise of the feminine in the collective psyche, but the rise of the feminine also in every individual, male body, female body. The very nature of gender will change, but that you understand that you have 2 sides of yourself, and those 2 sides have a relationship, and you have a relationship to 2 whole different dimensions of your nature. And part of that crack in the world is being cut off from that fullness of one's own psyche. So it's a big subject. And I'm going to read something else. Her door is always open. Invincible, ineffable, oh my goddess, ever healing, ever awakening mysteries, emptying out into mysteries, ever allowing, ever inviting, oh my goddess, rivers of amber, seas of opal. Do you understand? Exhale the infinite, inhale the finite, exhale the finite, inhale the infinite. Oh yes, and the in-between, where ceaseless motion and utter stillness become lost within each other. Oh my goddess, her door is always open, dawn at midnight, midnight at noon, endlessness. Do you understand? Storms raging, sun blazing, simultaneity. Do you understand? Ever leading, ever listening, ever learning. Oh my goddess, her door is always open. So grateful for all those who fearlessly unroll their mats of fire. So grateful for all those who led the way into the transformational flames. Oh my goddess, the great serpent blossoms, the great lotus coils. Do you understand? Her door is always open. Indomitable, inexhaustible, mysteries emptying into mysteries. Dear Messieurs Higgs and Boson, when you find that God particle, I want you to split it open and look inside. You will behold a goddess dancing madly. And if you attempt to split her in two, you will find yourself transformed into a doe drinking spring water from the palm of a blue-skinned shepherd boy who is in turn held in the palm of one of the 8 hands of that madly dancing goddess you attempted to split in two. And you will wonder, were you always the doe, or were you once a physicist? But you will soon lose interest in the answer to that question, whatever it is. And you will want only to go deeper into the sublime unknowing that has risen up to engulf you. Oh my goddess, invisible, ineffable, do you understand? Her door is always open. The second theme was to reframe altruism and sustainability as spiritual imperatives. So economic imperatives, social imperatives, but how could the depth of your nature not be aligned with an altruistic attitude and imperative, and likewise with sustainability. So I use often in this series of books, I've used Maslow's principle, the pyramid of basic human needs. Everybody needs physiological requirements, safety, love, belonging, esteem, self-actualization. It builds up from the food and water and human contact up to self-actualization. I say that this pyramid is more important than the Great Pyramid at Giza. And maybe if time is a circle, maybe the Great Pyramid of Giza is actually pointing back to Maslow's pyramid of basic needs. Who knows? I mean, it didn't start with Maslow. He just plucked something out of psyche and explained it in a way that makes sense. But lo and behold, it's a pyramid. There's other. This is a illustration from a German thesis, and it's showing the amount of. Did you see the little red squares? That's the Sahara and the little red squares. The tiny red square is how much of the Sahara would be required to provide Germany with solar power. The middle square is how much of the Sahara would be required to provide the EU with solar power. And the larger square is what it would provide the Earth with solar power. Now, this is just math, of course, and there's all kinds of issues about delivery systems and storage and all kinds of stuff. But these problems are being addressed, and they wouldn't even be problems anymore if this was a central focus of energy policy. But the math is there, and there are similar things. You'll find another one that says it would be the size of Spain to cover the world. So that would be a little larger than this German doctoral student. Maybe he's a little ambitious. So let's fine, the size of Spain to give the world solar power. And again, there's issues, there's questions, there's all kinds of technological challenges in delivery and storage. But seriously, what a different world, and what a different world. And I always, when I look at that picture, I remember Lenin, when he sang, there are no problems, only solutions. And then this other part of my shadow mind says, yeah, and they shot him. But anyway, there it is. Altruism and sustainability as spiritual imperatives, spiritual and existential imperatives, right? Because you could be, this is an example of something a mystic and existentialist could agree on. Why wouldn't we want to make sure, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, signed in 1947 by every country in the world, including this one, said that every human being has a right to retirement, every human being has a right to education, every human being has a right to a job, every human being has a right to unemployment if they lose their job, every human being has a right to health care. 1947. Well, world wars do that to you. Everybody gets in touch with reality for a few years, and then they start to drift off into their own little fantasies. Like all good users' guides, I included a checklist. I'm not going to go through it now, but it's there. And I wanted to, the title I just said Path of an Evolutionary, subtitle, book 4 was Path of an Evolutionary. I wanted to say little lowercase r evolutionary, but I knew that Amazon and the other distributors couldn't handle it, so I just said Path of an Evolutionary. But I was really wanted to play with the relationship between revolution and evolution. They have a relationship. It's not one or the other. An evolutionary leap is arguably, in one way, a revolution. And well, let's say in terms of human history, let's say you had a revolution, and you decided you wanted to institute a democratic republic. That's hypothetically. And the idea of this revolution was to create a democratic republic that would then allow for incremental progress. In other words, evolution. And there's a way that revolution and evolution work together. Of course, you'd always have to be on guard for counter-revolution and devolution. But I'll leave it there. So, Cauldron Yoga, for me, is just a synonym for primal reality, what I call primal reality, just this concept of cauldron. And so this was the 4th drawing that I drew. This one's in color, so it's a little less painful to look at. But you see the cauldron, great ancient Celtic symbol of the cauldron. And all the colors of all the elements and the 5 wisdoms and is all in there. And then I drew the hand, right? And Einstein's formula, E equals mc squared, is written on the hand, and then here's some DNA, the helix, and there's the rest of the senses in here. Here's a yoni and a lingam, and here's a small kala chakra, small wheel of time, because time really, what is time? So it doesn't take up much space in here. And there's cracks in the cauldron, because it's always ready to explode. So brimming with Shakti and everything. And then all through it is written Shiva, Shakti Soma, Shakti Soma, Shakti Soma. Psyche Soma, Psyche Soma, Psyche Soma. Psyche, the contents of the mind, conscious and unconscious mind, and Soma, that which the body holds, somatic of the body. Psyche Soma, Psyche Soma. And then you see a little yoga mat. And there's somebody in a handstand, and somebody in back bend, and somebody in warrior 2. Anyway, Cauldron Yoga, the idea is, it's a tantric vision of birth and death as transformation in which human incarnation is experienced as divine revelation. Tantra is being buried alive in rich soil only to realize that you are the root of the world and that the warm decay is your nourishment. Tantra is being swept away in the fierce current of a great river that has overflown its banks, swollen with torrents of tear. The term Tantra is a survivor of abuse. It has been cruelly exploited. Tantra has been sold into slavery and then auctioned back to itself countless times. Tantra is invincible. Its experience of its own nature is the very essence of healing. Tantra is a path of self-immolation and in the smokeless fire of radical transformation. Tantra is pain. Tantra is the pain and pleasure and the pleasure and pain. Tantra is the wind. If it does not thrill through something else, it has no sense of itself. Ceaseless movement is its calm abidance. Tantra is sacred technology, and like many technological breakthroughs in medicine and computing made in the course of space exploration, Tantra is a byproduct of the great goddess's engineering genius. Just one of the many dazzling technological breakthroughs made in the course of her self-creation. The perfection of Tantra is savored in utter loneliness just as deeply as in sublime communion. Yoga and Tantra are the wings of a great bird. The bird cannot soar with only one wing. Tantra revels in the deep mysteries of gender and all its dazzling permutations. From deep inside the nature of suffering, Tantra opens a portal beyond. Tantra is discovering that you are the dark blue flesh of space itself, and that all of the red life is contained within you. This is the truth. Gaian Poetics, the planet is a self-organizing, intelligent entity. And this intelligent, this is poetry that is science, and science that is poetry. This is a shamanic fact as well as a scientific fact. The Gaia, the earth, is a self-organizing, intelligent planetary being. And this self-organizing, intelligent planetary being dreams. And we are its dreams. The planet dreams the whales, the planet dreams the madrones, the planet dreams the emeralds, the planet dreams us. And then we in turn dream. And in our dreams of each other, I dream about the whales and the madrones and the elms and the planet itself. She dreams about us, and all the creatures' dreams intersect in the dream time. And this is the reality of something greater than any one of its parts or any sum of its parts. And we can walk. It's a siddhi. To sing is a siddhi. To walk, to sing, to dance. These are siddhis. These are powers that we have. And the poetics, we have an intimate relationship with this self-organizing, intelligent planetary being who is the primordial goddess. We have an intimate relationship with her. And out of that comes the poetics of our life here. I am Bear, first of the gods and fiercest. Before fear had a name, I was. Before magic had a name, I was. I am Bear. I led you to the caves in darkness, my bones welcome you. I am Bear. You danced me, you ate me, you wrapped yourself in me. I am Bear. In the caves you called on my medicine for protection and abundance. These flowed freely. I am Bear. I led you to the berries and the honey. I led you to the salmon and the seals. I am Bear. In my shadow you embraced the carnal heat. From my skull you drank the primal reality. I am Bear. Female and male, mother of the drum, father of the rattle. I am Bear. My roar shaped Arthur's table. My scent permeated the recesses of his keep. I am Bear. I carried this earth's wisdom before it even knew itself. Neanderthal knew. Whale knew. Eagle knew. And I knew. But you forgot. So you are blind to your shadow and deaf to your dreams. Remember, I am Bear. The circle is broken. Find the you in which it has been healed. Join the ceremony. Celebrate. I am Bear. These are the jaws of time and the claws of space. My totem protects you, but not from me. So these hands, this is me on Instagram, being influenced by the hands in a cave, an Aboriginal cave in Australia from 50,000 years ago. They changed me. And then I found out that there were caves 50,000 years ago in Australia, 30,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago in Spain, in France, in Borneo, in Argentina. Just hands. No weapons, no tools, no hands, just we're here. What are they trying to communicate? Many things, and really only one truth that's impossible to really articulate except through the realm of feeling, through touch. Just some symbols to think about for the great shift. Were we to, let's say, find our way, were we to, let's say, emerge from the singularity which we have created for ourselves, this impossibility, the great shift that would be required. These are some images that I feel are very powerful and very in tune with the way forward. Of course, the triune goddess, the circles of the triune goddess, they're at New Grange, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. The yin and the yang, perfectly balanced, with the yin inside the yang and the yang inside the yin. Adhanari, and this half Shiva, half Parvati, half male, half female, down the middle. And this is a particularly interesting Adhanari because the female side is on the right side. More times than not, well, almost always, you always see the female side on the left side and the male on the right side of anything. But Adhanari, I think, is very important moving forward. The understanding of both sides of our psyche. Not as sides, but as this. And the Sri Yantra, of course, which I always think of as the architecture of the matrix. And then the symbol of the Yoni Mudra, which speaks for itself. But it's a very powerful thing, and I like any mantra, like any mudra, if one does it wherever one is, whatever one is going through or generating, it has power. And then finally, I'll read one more thing to end, but so all of this went on online on these, it was all out there as it evolved. And many people in this room are part of the process, and I'm very grateful to you. I shouldn't say many people, some people in this room were a part of the process, and I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful to all of you for coming and sharing it with me tonight and any of the other nights of these 15 talks that you were here. This year, I am intending to write a memoir about my life, which, of course, is largely written, but I've waited till the right time to frame it and to make some decisions about this and that. So that's one of the projects that I'm going to do this year. I'm already doing this year. And the other thing that I'm going to do this year is take all these 5 books and collect them into one volume. So no friend ever has to say, which one should I read first? I just say, it's just going to be this one volume, and I'm going to be able to lose a few things along the way, and maybe get a great artist friend to redo my drawings for me. And that will be put together this year and released this year. And I'll do an audio version of that one. So that one will be a soft cover and electronic Kindle, and also audio book. So I'll conclude with one last reading. Durga, the great goddess, mother of the universe, the power with which all life is created, sustained, and destroyed. One of the literal meanings of Durga is fortress. Another is she who removes suffering. Yes, she is the sanctuary, but this sanctuary is on the move. She rides a great cat, typically a lion, sometimes a tiger. I say the last of the saber-tooths. She has 8 arms or 10 arms. In each hand she holds a weapon with which she vanquishes the demon enemies of all that is beautiful and innocent. I say that along with the sword and the axe, she also wields tools of science and agriculture. She has 3 eyes to see deep into the past, present, and future. She has emanations, including most notably Kali. Here's the story of how Durga came to reign over me. In my feral youth, I declared matter-of-factly that I would be dead by my 25th birthday, not because I was suicidal, I wasn't. It was just that based on all that I had already seen, I could not conceive of any future. But then one morning I was 25 and I wasn't dead. Smoking ruins, of course, surrounded me. After all, I had lived a wild, nihilistic life for a decade without the least concern for any day of reckoning. So at the age of 25, I decided I was going to live on. I needed to find my way into one of those hidden esoteric schools that Gurdjieff and Blavatsky had hinted at in their writings. I began turning doorknobs until I came across a door that opened and I stepped through it. I will tell the story of what lay beyond that door in due course, but Krishna met me first. He led me to an exquisite meadow of willows, lush grass, and wildflowers. There was ceaseless music, drumming and flutes. Women were dancing. There was laughter and love mischief. I was allowed to rest in that amazing idol for a few years to renew myself. Gopala, Gopala, Devakinandana Gopala. Krishna was a cowboy and his mother is bliss. But then Hanuman came for me. He led me into a great maelstrom and he taught me how to leap across the abyss and back again. He showed me how to rip my heart open and offer it up in devotion. He showed me how to serve those who serve. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, victory, victory, victorious oneness. I stretched out to rest my 5 bodies after these acts of great valor. I woke in the dark on the other side of the maelstrom in which Hanuman had led me. The exquisite meadow was so far behind me, it seemed as if it had never existed. There was no more laughter, no more love mischief. The music had been swallowed up in the fathomless silence of the deep. No more Krishna, no more Hanuman. There was only a long, dark tunnel that led deep into an immense underground chamber. And there was a demon king's golden throne in that place. And there were tall marble pillars and a powerful stench. And I felt the fear that I'd carried on my back from as deep into my childhood as I could remember. This fear told me that some ancient evil was coming for me again, and that I would not escape it this time. This fear told me that I would be devoured, and that all I had ever loved or hoped for would be extinguished in that dark place. I could feel this ancient evil advancing upon me from behind. But then suddenly one of the immense pillars turned white hot in a flash, and transforming into the lion god Narasimha, who thrust me behind him and turned to confront the ancient evil that had been advancing upon me. The lion god tore off that demon's head and ripped it apart. But its polluted blood spread everywhere, and from each drop countless more demons arose. And in an instant they were legion. And Narasimha kept me close and led me down deeper and deeper into the underground because there was no other way forward. And we were fiercely pursued by a legion of demons, and he brought me to a far greater hall, far deeper underground, and here he thrust me behind him, and again he turned to face the legion of demons, and they overwhelmed him. But as soon as I fell to the floor of the chamber, from a shadow within my own shadow, the dark goddess Kali emerged, and she danced on my corpse-like body. And as she danced, she slayed wave after wave of demons. And as she moved, I rode within her shadow. And she whirled and stomped and thrashed her way up, 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 through all the realms of dark night through which we had previously descended, until we arrived again upon the surface of the earth. And I felt again the air on my face, and there was a breeze. It was a summer night. The plumeria was wafting on that breeze, and I could hear a river, and there were frogs singing, and there were drums in the distance, and everywhere I could feel small creatures being born, and roots reaching into the hot, wet soil. Decades had passed since I stepped through that door, so many years since laughter and love mischief in Krishna's meadow, so many years since Hanuman's lessons in daring do, so many years since Narasimha emerged from that immense marble pillar. But it was that wild ride in the shadow of Kali that brought it all into perspective. It was Kali's axe and Kali's sword and Kali's gnashing teeth that healed my deep wounds. And as she whirled and stomped and thrashed her way through legions of demons, she swallowed every drop of their blood, so that none of it spilled to birth more demon spawn, and only she could devour the evil behind it all. And then a few years ago, she brought me back to the life of this world, whole in my dismemberment, overflowing in my emptiness. Om Shri Maha Kalikai Namaha. Yes, Kali Ma delivered me to the camp of a vast army, arrayed along the banks of an endless river. That is the song of this universe itself. And then biting my lip one last time, she loosed me and slipped back into the shadow from which she emerged, leaving me there alone, with the plumeria on that soft summer breeze, along the banks of that endless river, with the campfires of that vast army in the distance. And then I realized that the time had come, and I saw her riding toward me, and then through me, and past me. Yes, the great goddess Durga Ma, on the back of a huge saber-toothed tiger. And I fell in behind her, and have been moving with her ever since, deeper and deeper into the portal that opens into the infinite fields of the mysterium. We must bring back a new world, one that will awaken in billions of hearts in the span of a single lifetime, and in that process reveal itself to be the world in which we already dwell. We must protect it. We must heal ourselves and protect this new world fiercely. So thank you very much for being very patient. I'm sorry that we went long, but I wanted to get it out. And let's just have a moment, a quiet moment. Really only a moment. Feel the elegance, natural elegance of our spines. Breathe a gentle, indrawn breath into the heart. Gentle indrawn breath into the heart with a feeling of unconditional love flowing out. We'll put our hands together in prayer, and we're going to say Ah, Om from the crown, Ah at the throat center, and Hung at the heart center, and then we're going to give out with a loud and vulgar Ha. Big breath. Ha!